I think this is probably what's been holding back Luka Doncic from winning MVP. Because doesn't he put up like incredible numbers every year? Like I think last year he was the favorite. Yeah, he was the favorite to win MVP going into the season. This year he has 34.4 points per game, 8.8 rebounds, 9.7 assists, like almost averaging a triple-double, similar to Nikola Jokic. Like the numbers have always been there, but it feels like I can't get there for MVP just because the Mavericks right now, what are they sitting in 7th place? They're 8 games back out of the West. Am I missing something here? Do you think Luka has a shot?
No, Luka, the Mavs need to continue winning games. They need to climb out of that play-in tournament position. Luka needs to position this team a top 5 team, maybe, which is doable, but the West is really tough. That it's going to take a lot for that to happen. Now, if that does happen, that means Luka's playing out of his mind. So in that case, then maybe he does have a good shot at winning MVP, because if all of a sudden the Mavs climb, they pass the Pelicans and the Suns. Mavs right now are half a game behind those two teams, and Dallas moves into the 5th spot. It's because Luka Doncic is going off, and his numbers are probably going to look significantly better. So I do still think that there is a path for Luka to win MVP, but he's going to have to consistently put up massive numbers, like you said, nearly averaging a triple-double every night in order for that to happen. My wonder with Jokic is, like, I think Jokic should have won the MVP last year. Voters gave it to Embiid. He had a great season, but he wasn't better than Jokic, and that played itself out pretty obvious in the postseason. You know, after the first round, I think everyone was like, oh crap, we gave it to the wrong guy. Now, had Embiid stayed healthy this entire season, Embiid would have won MVP. He was putting up insane numbers. So I wonder when the fatigue will come for Jokic, because similar to LeBron in his prime, LeBron could have won MVP every year, but they at some point they stopped giving it to him. It was someone else's turn. Is that going to be this season, or are we 1 year away from the Jokic
falling back to earth?
I'm looking for fatigue. Yes.
Fatigue. Yeah, I think because part of the reason why Nikola Jokic has been so dominant, it's not just his performance, it's his availability, because he has been one of the more durable players in the NBA over the last few seasons. Like that, I feel like is one of the key differences between Jokic and Joel Embiid, is that he's usually playing. And if you have a deep run where you play in the NBA Finals, one would think the extra wear and tear on your legs eventually would probably get to you, but I don't know. Nikola Jokic like barely runs up and down the court. So like maybe he's operating on like such a low level. Like between him and Luka Doncic, feels like they're not sprinting. So maybe he's been pacing himself. I don't know. But you're right. I think narratives definitely go into this award. And people would probably point out and say, okay, this is a regular season award, but the voters are human. Don't you feel like last year's postseason, it's very hard to box it out of your brain? Gabe, I want to follow up on something that I thought I heard you say. I thought I heard you say that you want the Bears to take Drake May. Is this correct? You're going to have to tell us why.
Okay, I love this. So we are very familiar with our good friend Pete Fiutak. And he and I, along with Alyssa Bergamini, we did a show on BetQL last year. It was a college football show. And it was Caleb Williams' Heisman Trophy winning season. Now, Pete Fiutak, huge fan of Caleb Williams, huge fan of everything going on at USC. So I had to listen to him week in and week out talk about Caleb Williams. But every single week, I was watching Drake May play, and he was putting up equally as good numbers. And so during that season, I just thought to myself, leading up to the Heisman, that Drake May was going to win. When Caleb won, I was a bit hurt. And then the next year came, and everyone started hyping up Caleb Williams as if, like, something happened that I didn't know. So I had Pete Fiutak on my show here at 670. I said, Pete, what's going on? We watched this whole college season last year. Why is everyone on Caleb Williams? We watched this together. And he on my show, and he's like, Gabe, because the idiots in college football need something to talk about, so they'll jump on any storyline. And I was like, yes, I knew I wasn't wrong. So I guess my thing is this, Chelsea. If you're telling me that Caleb Williams is Patrick Mahomes and Drake May is Justin Herbert, I don't mind a Justin Herbert and a ton of draft capital. So to me, that's what the intriguing component is there. It's not necessarily just a Drake May number one over Caleb Williams. It's Bears move down one, take Drake May, get a bunch of draft capital, and still have a good quarterback and some draft capital to make the team better.
Gabe, I listened to the Adam Schefter podcast yesterday while I was getting my nails done, and he interviewed Drake May, and I kind of fell in love with him too. Very nice kid, uses yes ma'am, no sir, all that jazz, very polite, got his head on straight, but I'm not with you. I don't want Drake May here in Chicago, either Justin or Caleb only. Gabe, like 2 minutes left here. Outside of the quarterback situation that obviously is dominating headlines, where else do the Bears need to look to add or build in this draft or this upcoming offseason as a whole?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because they don't have enough draft picks to address every issue. They do have money to capitalize on that. So I think you have to add, I mean, it's a litany of things, but you got to add another wide receiver, whether that's late in the draft or somebody at the top with your first two top 10 picks. You got to get a center. I would prefer the Bears address it in free agency, get someone that has a bona fide resume, someone that can actually be there for your young quarterback or Justin Fields. I think on the defensive side of the ball, you got to address the defensive line position. Montez Sweat was a stud. Maybe a guy like Danielle Hunter can be on the other side, or Jared Verse if he's still there, and the Bears end up deciding to go that route. And then you got to get a safety. Eddie Jackson's gone. You got to get some depth there. So there are some pieces. Fortunately, the Bears have enough money in free agency to address some of the key ones. And then they do have some key draft picks to hopefully get some starters in there as well.
The one caveat is Tennessee has burned us so many times in March Madness, and Rick Barnes has this narrative of failing in the tournament that nobody wants to believe in Tennessee. Do you think this is a fair narrative, saying, well, they've never been good in the tournament, so why would they start now?
Yeah, this is classic Rick Barnes, right? End the regular season on a high note, give everyone hope that you're going to be able to make a deep tournament run. You have a couple great offensive performances leading up to the tournament, and which is really nice to see for Tennessee fans, because for the most part, the Tennessee's identity is on the defensive end. So it's just kind of like false hope and false narrative for all you fans, because it's still Rick Barnes. This is still the same Tennessee team that fails in the tournament every year. Mm-hmm. I would not want to put my money on them and trust them. I mean, similar to, we're going to talk more about college basketball and the futures market later in the show, but do I want to put my money on Kentucky? They haven't gotten out of the second round in how many years, right? No. I mean, at some point, it's kind of like trends in the tournament in terms of teams not being able to get over that hump. You have to follow them because Rick Barnes and Tennessee has not been able to. So a great win. Dalton Connect is super fun to watch. I mean, he and LeBron James did the same thing last night, outscored their opponents late in the game by themselves. But I still don't think that's enough to translate to a potential national championship based on past performances.
Yeah, but aren't narratives made to be broken? Like, didn't people say this about Dan Hurley before he won a national championship? Like, obviously, Dan Hurley has not been around nearly as long as Rick Barnes. That's the other thing. I'm like, Rick Barnes is 112 years old. Like, if he hasn't changed the narrative by now, like, is he ever going to change it? But here's the other thing. Like, if I was watching last night's Tennessee game and there wasn't a name on the jersey, I would say this team is certainly a contender. But, like, I just can't get past it. And maybe it's going to be built into the number, and maybe we won't see people betting on Tennessee for that reason. But I think you can point at several teams, you know, with that same narrative. Like looking at Purdue, that's kind of the case. They have had some really embarrassing, you know, stops in March Madness, losing to like some of, you know, the smaller schools. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of Tennessee. I think a lot of it will be dependent on the number and what we see going into March, because Dalton Connect, that guy's on another level. I think it's time to introduce him to the National Player of the Year conversation. Right now, he's probably going to win SEC Player of the Year, but still, what a season this young man is having.